All right, we got our full board, so I'm gonna get this party started. 6:30. Welcome everybody to the October 4th meeting of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's see, all voting members, including our associate members, are participating remotely. That would be Mr. Greg Tanzi, myself, Rob Rosa, Mr. Baker Sr., that's Bob Baker Sr., Tim Haynes, and Steve Galley. He is our associate member, and I don't see Nicole. I'm assuming she's going to be coming in at some point. And Mr. Baker Jr. is going to be running a little late tonight. So let's would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Motion and then second on Mr. Haynes.
Yes, second.
All right. I see Deb is dialing in right now. Let me just make sure she's aware of what's going on. Opening the public hearing. Mr. Baker Sr. He made the motion. Mr. Haynes seconded. So we're good there. Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Yourself is a yes. Mr. Baker Sr.
Yes.
Mr. Haynes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Let me read the legal advertisement, and just so everybody's aware, this meeting is being recorded. Let's see. Shinglemill LLC comprehensive permit, 6:30 p.m. remotely conducted continuance public hearing on the petition filed under Chapter 40B comprehensive permit by Shinglemill LLC, care of Conoco, 41st Street, Bridgewater, Massachusetts, 02324, to allow the construction of 236 units of residential housing. The project within 2 5-story buildings and approximately 29.33 acres of land located at 0 Pond Street and 152 Wilson Street. The applicant is proposing 25% of the units to be classified as affordable as per Mass General Law Chapter 40B. The site is located on 0 Pond Street, lot 13, map number 9, and 152 Wilson Street, lot 68, map number 10. A copy of this application, materials, plans, and other documents are available upon request electronically from the town clerk by dialing 781-871-1874. Press 1 for the town hall. All right. I see. Let's see. Who is here for the applicant? I see Mr. Marioni, Attorney Marioni.
Yes,
How you doing, sir?
Good evening. How are you?
Not too bad. Let's see.
Mr. Lincoln
Attorney,
is not available this evening. He's unfortunately stuck in Florida dealing with the mess down there.
No, it's understood.
I do have with me Brian Klingler, who's the LSP from Conoco, and the engineer Damian Dimitrick is here as well, although I believe we're not going to get into the engineering issues this evening, but he is here and available.
No, that's again, I think today what we really need to talk about is the geotechnical stuff. We have a representative from Rue Engineering. Who do we have here today?
So my name is Ed Weigel.
Oh, here we go.
And as you know, I've been retained by the town to help perform an independent review of the documents that have been submitted as part of this project.
Okay, I think everybody on the board has had an opportunity to review the letter that you had put together. Attorney Marioni, did you say you had your geotech here? Did he want to speak to the letter, or was there any issues?
Brian Klingler from the LSP from Conoco is here. He's available to address the letter. If you would like Brian to speak first, that's certainly fine with us.
Yeah, no, Brian, because again, I think the letter that Ed had put together was pretty self-explanatory. Did you want to combat that letter or something? Did you want to?
No, I agree with that. I mean, the conclusion we agree with in terms of the baseline conclusion was that they met industry standards and that he saw no significant risk for current and future uses. So we agree with that.
All right, kind of figured that.
So the recommendation with respect to the soil management, we don't disagree with as well. That's a little bit farther down the road, but we don't have a problem with that as well.
Okay. Mr. Tanzi, this was your baby. This is, you know, this is what you kind of pushed for. Do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah, we have not had any testing of this site done under the supervision of a representative of a town. There is areas that tested quite high for hydrocarbons and other issues. Supposedly, a while ago, they were removed, but our consultant has said that there are questions about that report. What extent they, what measures they did to remove the material? Did they get it all? I don't think there's been any other follow-up testing to see if those areas were adequately or properly mitigated. There were some questions about the well and the depth of the well and the sampling of the well. So, I mean, I would, I think that the site needs to be tested again by an independent representative of the town to make sure that the entire site was, you know, was tested thoroughly. The tie and bond report reported that some areas weren't tested, and they don't really, then they're very vague about why they weren't tested, something that they weren't allowed to, I think, by the owner. And I just would feel better if the site was retested by an expert who is representative of the town, who represents the town.
Okay, Mr. Tanzi said, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. So basically what you're saying is you don't believe any of the geotech stuff that Conoco has supplied.
Well, Conoco is the applicant.
Right.
So, and Conoco did a lot of this water testing. And Conoco wrote Rick Lincoln, who is Conoco, a letter that said, your wells, Mr. Lincoln, are fine. And that's called a conflict of interest, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, I mean, so why did he do this? I mean, why would you do this? If, you know, if you're on the up and up and whatnot, and you know that there's nothing wrong, why wouldn't you, you know, invite the town to say, hey, we want you involved. We're going to be doing testing. We want somebody from the town to witness the testing, to, you know, do their own samples, take their own samples to a lab, check the lab, see if your lab results match our lab results, and if they do, fine. But, you know, clearly there was a conflict of interest there that, you know, it should be a concern. It should be a concern for everybody on this board.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've never seen that done. I've never seen that done in the industry. I mean, if they're going to do it themselves and test it themselves, these testings get witnessed by an agent of the town. I mean, that holds true with everything, whether it's drilling a well, whether it's doing a perk test. Certainly, it holds true with site assessments and making sure that sampling protocols were done on on a legitimate grid, not, concentrating in the areas that we know are clean, kind of shying away from suspect areas and that sort of thing.
Okay, Ed, do you want to, can you speak to anything that Mr. Tanzi's speaking about?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer specific questions. I've been involved in site assessment and cleanup for 30 years. And it's unusual for a town to finance a private developer's due diligence. Usually when towns are funding this sort of work, it's because they're interested in the property and they want to acquire it. I have not seen too many cases outside of actual public involvement sites that are listed with Mass DEP, sites that actually have releases and are being regulated by Mass DEP's Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. I have not seen, generally speaking, municipalities or cities getting involved in the collecting of environmental samples for due diligence. With respect to the water supply and the concerns around that, I addressed that in my letter. There's some inconsistencies in the report about the water sampling. I don't consider these to be significant for this development for the reason that Mass DEP and their scientists and engineers are going to be reviewing all this information, and they're going to require that these wells be tested to the nines. So I don't see the water supply as being an issue. Mass DEP will not approve an unsafe water supply for this development. And then, the development calls for the import of fill. So, to the extent that there's still anthropogenic material out here, it's going to be covered. And as long as the procedures for placing the fill and the sourcing of the fill are followed and documented, it would seem to me that the import of the fill is appropriately covered from an environmental standpoint. Now, that having been said, Greg, did you have specific questions that you wanted me to address?
Well, first of all, I wasn't insinuating that the town pay for it. I was insinuating that the applicant pay for the testing to be done with a town agent or a consultant witnessing these tests and making sure that samples are actually getting to labs, a chain of custody, a legitimate sampling regime is done, a legitimate testing regime has done that would satisfy me that this site is clean. Now, I have worked on projects where, and it wasn't even next to a reservoir. It was all on ledge, and they brought in fill, and the owner had his guy go out and do some tests, and they all came back below detectable limits. And that was the developer's geotechnical guys. But the town was very persistent and wanted their own person to do a testing protocol and sampling and testing. And he did some testing, and it came back negative, non-detectable. It was just at sufficient limits of the fill, like what the developer's engineer did, or licensed site professional. And then the town's LSP started doing testings at different depths and deeper depths, and lo and behold, bad things were being found, such that they had to remove the entire fill that was brought in. And the fill, we suspect, I mean, that we never got a straight answer, but there was a automobile dealership in town that had a gravel parking lot where used cars were stored there over the years. And then that dealership was torn down and a different development went in there. And we suspect that some of the fill came from that area. And, you know, I mean, this again, I mean, auto salvage, you know, junkyards, there's a lot of bad stuff that just gets deposited there over the years. And the stuff migrates and it can go over the years, it can penetrate to different depths and different levels. I am concerned about Rockland's water supply. We've got a junkyard that's right next to and probably jots into a Zone A aquifer surface water protection zone. And I just want to make sure that this site is clean. I don't want 10 years from now or 5 years from now, all of a sudden, Rockland starts finding it's got some serious water quality issues with its reservoir. I mean, right now, we're already detecting that PFAS, and it's over 20 parts per trillion. And that's an expensive remediation. You know, it's at like 23 and 25. The limit now is 20. There's talking about, you know, adjusting the limits for that and so forth, and various types of PFAS, and some chemicals are going to require more, you know, stringent thresholds than others, and so forth and so on. You know, I don't want to get burnt down the future. You know,
Okay,
5
Greg,
years from now, this guy's going to be
Greg,
gone.
Greg,
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect,
Greg,
5
with
years
all
from
due
now,
respect to yourself, we're beating a dead horse. What I want to do is I want to get to the crux of the matter. Do you or do you not believe the documentation that was provided to us by Conoco? Do you or do you not believe it?
I don't think it's conclusive. No, I think
Okay,
it requires more due diligence.
Okay, this is where I'm trying to. I want to break it down because we keep beating this dead horse. All right, I just want to get to the meat and potatoes. Ed, my vice chairman is saying that he doesn't base it. He doesn't feel that the documentation that was provided was adequate.
Yeah, I mean, assessing sites like this, there's an element of, you know, did we get it right? You know, one of the jokes inside the industry is, you know, one way to clean up your site is to assess it so much that all the soil goes to the lab. You know, that's just not a practical way of approaching site assessment and development. I mean, you have to put a level of effort into the assessment that's commensurate with, you know, what the site has been used for and what the site is being proposed to be used for. And in my opinion, as an environmental professional practicing here in Massachusetts for 30 years, you know, there's been quite a bit of work that's been done out here. Now, it wasn't all visible for me to review, and that's an artifact of the laws here in Massachusetts, which state that the limited removal actions, which were done back, you know, about 20 years ago to excavate a couple of areas of petroleum impacts, those reports are only required to be maintained for 5 years by the property owner, and after that, they can let them go. I don't think that was a good idea here. You know, obviously, if those reports were available and we could review them, you know, I think that might provide more comfort to Greg, you know, that the right thing was done out here. But, you know, without having that, I mean, my experience has been that for the most part, when independent companies do work for clients, they're not pulling punches. They're not hiding things. They're not providing opinions that aren't consistent with the data. And, I'd especially point that out to Ty and Bond, who had a fairly good arm's length assessment and review of what went on out here. Also with Sanborn Head. These are two very reputable companies that I'm familiar with and, have worked with and worked across from, for many, many years. Generally speaking, when one of those firms puts something down in writing, it's trustworthy.
This is what I'm getting to. I mean, we need to, I guess we need to make a decision as to whether we believe this documentation or whether the possibility of a conflict of interest does actually exist. Mr. Dimitrick, I see you there. I got a question for you. Conoco did their own independent testing. Is that correct?
I think that might be more related to Brian. Are you talking about?
Yeah, maybe I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Damien, if you don't mind, I can speak to that. Sure. We
Yeah.
did do the work. We are, Conoco Building is the applicant. Conoco Environmental did the work. Rick does own Conoco Environmental. That said, it's a privatized system. I'm a licensed site professional. It's my license which that work is done.
But he's
So,
your boss.
He is my boss, correct? But
That's conflict of interest.
no, it's not a conflict. I do numerous submissions under for Rick Lincoln under that. Once you're a privatized system as an LSP, you're allowed to do work under that. It's not a conflict of interest. And no, I've ever had an issue with that in respect. Quite frankly, for Rick to own an environmental consulting company and then to hire another one to not have a conflict is silly. I'm there to find the problem. It's to advantage for me to find the problem. Obviously, I have over 850 permanent solutions. I have a sterling record. It's my license. So there is no nefarious activity here. Awful silly for us to go out and try and hide contamination and buy properties at the peak value based on it being a clean site, only to later to have it blow up in our face. It's a silly narrative. So that said, we did the work out in Conoco. We did a series of test pits. We did sample the groundwater monitoring wells. Ty and Bond did 17 test pits, 14 test borings. We did 15 test pits out there, 3 monitoring wells over a relatively smaller area that was ever used for the 30 years as an auto salvage shop. This isn't Love Canal. There's a largely undeveloped site that had one small auto salvage place in the southeastern corner of the property, which has now been riddled with test borings and monitoring wells and the like. So I think that from an industry standard, we're in pretty good shape in terms of our due diligence. It certainly would pass muster with any fiduciary liability. It would pass muster with the Department of Environmental Protection. They've taken a look at our groundwater data on a separate FEPAS issue. And they've said we have no issues with the groundwater on the property. That's the Massachusetts DEP. So in my mind, this site is a clean site, and I don't.
That's right. That was from these most recent wells that just got drilled.
Correct. We sent the DEP requested the data because they're dealing with an upgradient PFAS issue, and they wanted access for the site, which we granted them. We provided them all our data. They reviewed it and said, "You guys are all set." So
those are the wells that Concom approved, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to read an excerpt from the Ty and Bond report. Ty and Bond report says subsurface conditions may vary widely across the site, given the former site usage and the identified presence of buried waste. Actual conditions encountered during construction may vary. Additional disturbance of site soils may reveal conditions that vary from what has been encountered to date. Now, what was encountered to date was all these 17 test pits, and we did these test pits, and this is what's said during the meeting. But when it comes to what gets put on paper in writing, I'm seeing a totally different narrative being portrayed here. I mean, this is our reservoir. And a tie-in bond, you say they're a reputable company. Well, I mean, you read their narrative. And I'm supposed to make a decision on this project with the protection of this community on this basis of conflict. I mean, what was said here about tie-in bond and Conoco, and we dug all these test pits, and I'm confident that it's, all clean and all well. But when it comes to what's written, it's something different. And getting back to the conflict of interest with Conoco doing their own testing, I'll go on record. I don't buy that. I mean, everybody has a second party witness on tests, whether it's a perk test for a septic system or even reviewing a wetland line. You can, it's not uncommon for a second set of eyes, a consultant from the town to review these resource areas. This is serious stuff. You can't go back. Once you put that shovel in the ground, and once that building starts going up, it's game over. If we don't have it right, there's no going back. What does this town do for water? If it's like, oops, well, we didn't know that, all that stuff was there. And we have to get it right. We have to know. We can't, we gotta base our decision on credible evidence. And I just don't see it. I'll be honest with you. I don't see it. I see conflict. I see confliction between two narratives. One that gets voiced on on the internet, and another one that goes into writing on a report. I mean, can any one of you LSPs, will you guarantee that there will be no problems with this reservoir in the future? I mean, are you going to go on the record and hang your hat on that? I mean, you guys don't have to drink out of this reservoir, but I do, and the board does, and the community does. And we owe the community due diligence. That's our job.
Attorney Galvin, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Where do we go from here? And
I think I think that Mr. Tanzi has indicated very clearly how he feels. If some of the other board members want to weigh in, that's fine. But, we haven't had a meeting in months. Okay. And I really actually think what we ought to do is hear where the developer's at with their project, because this thing is going to have to go back out for further review, because my understanding, some things have changed. So I think it makes sense, even though we haven't had peer review, to have the developer update the board on where they're at with the plans and what's changed since the last hearing. I mean, we had a Zone A issue, and, I think that the board should hear where that's at, so that we can direct the peer reviewers to, evaluate this and can understand it at the next hearing date. And I think after they make presentation, if the board has any questions, I think the board should ask. And then, frankly, I think the next thing should happen is getting this out to peer review ASAP, so that we can have the people that are looking out and have the knowledge, experience, and training to evaluate these things can tell the board what they think. And I think when we come back for the next hearing and we do our peer review, we have our peer review reports. I think that the board should set aside some time for the public to ask questions through the board to either Attorney Mirioni and his team, or to the peer reviewers if there are outstanding questions. So I think you ought to get a preview as to where they're at with their plans, what's changed. And then I think you ought to schedule this for a further hearing after you've had the benefit of peer review.
works for me. Mr. Dimitrich, can you kind of update the board as to what's been going on for the last couple of months? I know we've been going back and forth with DEP at this point. Where do you guys stand with that?
had to unmute myself. Yeah, so we've been going back and forth with DEP regarding the Zone A area around the project. It's been decided upon. There was a minor tweak to one leg of the Zone A in one area. I can actually show the board if I can screen share real quick. You know, the Zone A, it was supplied in the plans. Make sure we're here. Everybody looking at my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So the this is the new key sheet that we've added, that we've included the revised Zone A per conversations with DEP. This was discussed via some back and forth emails. The majority of it is the same. There's not much difference in it. The only difference would be if you can, if we have do you guys have view of my mouse?
Yep.
Is down in this corner. There was a portion of the stream that my mouse is following right now that was identified by Mass DEP and to be there, and they've changed that as the revised tributary that used to extend a little further down in this direction. So given that Zone A, that again, we were originally arguing that, or discussing that, we didn't think that was a followed the definition of a Zone A per the DEP standards. We've had discussions with DEP. This is what we've fallen upon for our areas. So that's kind of leads into what the rest of the site was, that we based our new drainage design based on those changes to the Zone A. The majority of the site layout is the same. As you can see, there's the bar building, there's the L-shaped building, parking areas, are all generally the same. The access, everything there. The only major real the changes are the following. So at around the community building area, we removed some of the parking behind the building here. The number of units has decreased slightly in the L building. We've added a little more detail for this landscaped area. It's going to be a amenity area with some benches and some use over there. Additionally, there's an amenity area here. Again, both of these can more detail can be seen on the landscaping plans. This is kind of proposed as a more of a playground area. This is more of a leisurely picnic area. Number of parking spaces obviously adjusted because we removed back here. We also, again, with the building, number of units changing, we have, the ratios have changed slightly. And then, so those are kind of the major changes to the layout. And again, as I said, the Zone A, we've gone forward with designing, keeping our drainage systems outside of the Zone A, discharging and being maintained per the requirements there. So at the front of the site here, we've applied, just a simple way to catch and control and treat the flows with a storm scepter and a catch basin. And that could, all of that's going to be under the peer reviewer to discuss and evaluate, make sure that it's meeting the requirements, but, I've designed it per the requirements. And then additionally, the stretch here along the roadway, we're going to be, keeping the drainage structures and systems out of that area. And we're going to, from the high point within the road, we're going to be, sending everything down to these drainage structures. Again, with that, there's modifications to the locations of catch basins, underground infiltration systems, all of those things, but they're all being, they're all located outside of the Zone A per our discussions with DEP, and they're all being discharged outside of that Zone A as required. So those are the majorities of it. I go through my checklist. Additional, again, edits to plans. We've added some cross sections for review, again, with the peer reviewer or in, the members of the board to look through. But, stuff that you guys would kind of, is important to that site design, and the Zone A issues are kind of better displayed in this area. There's minor utility location changes, so some relocating of telephone lines, electric lines, but nothing of major concern, major depth that I'm going to go into during this meeting. And again, the peer review, after the peer review, I can answer any questions that come from that. Is there any specific questions we'd like to ask, or a page or a sheet we'd like to review?
I got a real quick question. These are the grading and drainage plans, I think. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yep.
Can you go back to the one with the main entrance to it?
Yeah.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
On anything specific?
Yeah, I almost went to point to it. Basically the entrance itself. I feel like I'm missing the existing contours. They're like real light. Okay. All right, you got them. All right. Again, I just wanted to make sure that there's enough, there's still enough off grading that we can determine that there's not going to be any, any pooling or any adverse drainage effects. I know we're not supposed to, you're not supposed to design it that way, but I just want to make sure that there is still enough off grading to be able to prove that.
Yeah.
With all the changes that are happening, so.
Yeah, over here, I believe this is similar to what was occurring before. We have this, outlet over here with the existing swale that will then go back underneath the structures. At the, this side is going to, again, continue to flow in the same direction as the existing, on basically the current, access lane, kind of roadway between the two wetlands. And then around this edge, due to kind of the grading changes associated with the revised drainage, making sure we keep our systems outside, we had to put some retaining walls in here to make sure that the drainage comes kind of around the property and that there wouldn't be any pooling over there. Okay. That isn't as existing grade does.
That's all I had. Mr. Tanzi, now seeing these plans, do you have any questions for the applicant's engineer?
Yes. Did you say that the DEP has changed their Zone A map?
Yeah, there was a slight modification to that DEP zone A. From what they had discussed or what was previously there. It's not in a major portion of the site. This area over here, we have, and I believe that was submitted, and that communication was brought to the board, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. But the DEP, you can find the information online. It used to kind of loop in this direction a little more. It's been kind of reduced down here. They've accepted that the tributary ends at this location.
I haven't seen any such communications. The only communications that I've seen is that the DEP has not changed their map. Can you show me how the map has changed? Can you show me the new DEP map?
Let me see if I can.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, while he's looking, can I
Yes,
address that? So I don't know that there's been a formal submission of the information yet. Don Nagel, who was handling this or is handling this for Mr. Lincoln, shared a communication with town council. We weren't prepared to, get into that level of detail tonight because we had, discussed the fact that that's not what we were going to do tonight. We were going to focus on environmental and just give a quick overview. So we in email communications with town staff indicated to staff that, and I think we even indicated it to Mr. Galvin, and I apologize if I did not, but that Mr. Nagel would be attending the next meeting and will make a presentation on this at the next meeting so that your peer reviewer has had a chance to review all the plans and would have it all in front of everybody. So we just weren't prepared to get into that level. Otherwise, Mr. Nagel would have been here.
That's understood. Again, we got no formal submission from you guys, so.
No, again, we indicated that we would be ready for the next meeting for that, that Mr. Nagel would attend that meeting.
No, that's understood. That's understood.
Just didn't want to go back and forth, and have sort of a half conversation. Whereas next time it'll be peer reviewed, you guys will be here, the peer review will be here, Nagel will be here, Danny will be here, and then, everybody will be in the room to have the conversation.
Again, I'm looking on Mass GIS right now and I haven't seen it and there's nothing changed. So, and it's really just a matter of, if that is the case, then DEP would have had to provide some sort of documentation to you guys. Then you guys would have to provide that to us. So, and knowing that you guys didn't do a formal submission yet, if that was the case, I knew that would end up coming. Yeah, there was really nothing that we could do at this point anyway. Pat Brennan hasn't even had hasn't had a chance to look at any of this.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We're just trying not to waste your time. That's all, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. No, I understand. Mr. Tanzi, knowing that that documentation, assuming it exists, will show up at for the next hearing. Do you have any other questions you want to talk to the applicant's engineer about?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you, Mr. Tanzi. Mr. Baker Senior, are you awake?
Yes, I am. The big question that everybody I've been talking to that lives up in that area is, are you going to be able to get DEP approval? I mean, we keep continuing the meetings because you're working with DEP, but what progress have you made with DEP? It's the big questions.
So again, we will submit the information and we would love to have that conversation at the next meeting when Attorney Nagel is here, but it has been relayed to me and I've seen the email communication between DEP and Mr. Nagel that they are in agreement with the Zone A as shown on the engineered plans that are coming to the town and that you just saw. That line is agreed upon. That's the way it's been represented to me. And I'm representing that tonight. I confirmed that again this morning because I figured the question was going to be asked because obviously it's been an important topic.
And again, that documentation that does change that zone 2, that zone 2 line, that documentation from DEP will be provided for the next meeting, correct?
You can't see this, but I just made a note number 2, and my note number 2 is to get you that information.
Done.
Are we going to get that? Are we going to get that information before the meeting? The board members?
So I think you could get that information as soon as tomorrow. We're gonna figure out what it is with your staff, the process that they want it to be submitted. It has to go through to submit it formally. Because admittedly, and I think the chair knows, we've had a little problem in the last couple of weeks with sort of trying to get it right. Maybe a little bit of conflicting information. So we want to do it the way you want it. And as soon as Mr. Nagel can provide it, we'll get it to you in that format. But obviously, if I'm representing that it exists, that DEP and our folks have agreed to it, then it exists. So it's just a matter of transferring it to you the way your staff wants it.
Yep. And then in the end, all you have to do is just coordinate with Deb Shuttlesworth. She's the key to your submittal at this point. If she's happy, we're happy.
I got it. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. That clarified the point.
Mr. Baker, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
No, thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Who did they talk to at the DEP about this change in the Zone A? There's mention about emails. Who at the DEP were you conversing with?
Richard Friend.
There we go. It's the same guy that we've been talking to in since day one. But again, when it comes to the Zone 2, let's limit the questions because they don't have all the documentation. We don't have all the documentation. There's really nothing that we can talk about. Mr. Haynes, do you have anything to discuss tonight?
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing the submittal and setting the next meeting.
Understood, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Galley, wake up, sir.
I'm awake.
There we go. You got anything to talk about tonight, sir?
No, I have nothing to contribute tonight.
I appreciate that, sir. Mr. Baker Jr., I see that you joined us. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, thank you, and my apologies for my tardiness.
No, that's understood. We knew about it at the beginning of the meeting. I know you joined late, so I don't know if you've heard what's been going on. Do you have any questions at this point, sir?
Based on what I've heard, probably within the last 5 or so minutes, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, because again, just so you're aware, there has not been a formal submittal of anything. There has not been a formal submission of plans, documentation, anything. So there's really nothing there's really nothing to talk about other than the fact that things are changing. We just need to see these changes on paper now. So, Attorney Galvin, did you want to voice in here or anything?
No, I did get an email on Sunday night from Attorney Nagel. I forwarded that to you. It referenced a map that was created by Conoco that appears to be something that the DEP approved.
Okay. I'll have to look at that. And again, it's going to have to, all of this is going to have some sort of letterhead, DEP letterhead that says, this is what we chose, this is what the zone A, blah, blah, something along those lines. It has to be official. So, I know we're going to have to deal with that at the next meeting. So,
Mr. Chairman, could I make one more comment?
Attorney Maroney, yes, please.
Thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge that Mr. Galvin and I exchanged an email today in which I agreed that I would submit an extension letter tomorrow morning based upon whatever date we agree to continue to. So I just wanted to put that on the record. You'll have, as we always do, the morning following the meeting, I'll get you your letter.
Attorney Galvin, you had suggested 60 days on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know when our current hearing extension date is. Perhaps Deb Shuttlesworth knows that, but I think that extending that out, because we're going to have peer review and then we're going to have another hearing and maybe one or two, because we still have to hear from the public too. So
It's good until October 15th
okay,
of
so
this
then
year.
it seems to me that we should extend through December 15th, which would be enough time to have us a couple more meetings on this anyways.
15th is a Thursday, but it is what it is. Deb, talk to us about schedule.
At this point, we can schedule them for December 6th, or we can set a different date to hear them.
I mean, I think we're going to need a few weeks for peer review. And then
Right.
if we had a special date, I think we should have this on for its own night, because I think there's a lot of people in the public that have a lot of questions and they want to be able to speak. And then, you're going to have peer review, then you're going to probably have a rebuttal from the applicant, and then there's going to be a lot of questions from the public. So I think doing this on its own night, I think is a really good idea if we can do it.
That would probably be the best idea. I do have one other question. Where are you guys in the Concom scheme of things? Has Concom seen any of this yet?
Damien, can you answer that? I think Concom was getting the submittal at the same time, but you might know more specifically.
Yeah, I believe Mike Toohill was handling the Concom submission. I got the plans digitally over to them and over to we sent a hard copy over to Henry Nover for his peer review. And I believe that the next ComCom meeting is the 18th. I can let me double check with my calendar.
So it's a parallel path, but they're a little ahead of you, Mr. Chairman.
But again, we're talking 18th of October.
Yeah, that's when I have it currently scheduled, or on my calendar.
I haven't heard when will the peer review and the board get the revised submittal?
Yeah, I guess are you guys prepared to submit?
I believe we have an electronic version of it,
That's
but
right.
we don't have hard copies.
Correct.
That's right. So we'll coordinate in the morning with Deb. And Deb sent me an email today. That's what I was mentioning earlier about a little bit of conflict, nothing that Deb did. We'll coordinate with her. We'll say, exactly what do you want? Where do you want it? And then she'll have it.
Great. So it's prepared. So there is actually an
It's-
electronic copy.
It
in
literally is
circulation.
ready. and the electronic version has been transmitted to you guys already. We actually got an email late in the day today from Candy, who said that, her good news is her power was back on down there, and that she had shared an electronic copy of what she was copied on with the town clerk, and the town clerk acknowledged having received it. So it's out there, but we're gonna work with Deb tomorrow to get it the way Deb wants it formally into the town. So she'll have it however she wants it. She'll let us know in the morning. Damien will then get it over there.
So if we give consultants 30 days to review, we really could be talking not the beginning of December, but we should be talking about the beginning or either our first or our second meeting in November to have the peer review back and have our meeting. So Deb, in terms of that schedule, where are we in November in terms of having a free night?
We could schedule them for November 15th.
And we have, how does that sound to everybody?
I have no problem with that. I think Pat Brennan's on the line here. Pat, you kicking around?
Yes, I am here. That time frame works fine for me.
Want to do 30 days with an extension on the decision for 60 days? Because we're gonna have if we're reviewing a month, there's gonna be a continuance. We're gonna have to figure this out. Saying does that work for everybody?
We'll still give you the same extension letter to December 15th. Sure, we'll get as many meetings as we can in between now and then, and as much work with the peer reviewers and the engineers, offline.
Attorney Galvin, does that work?
Yes.
All right, board members, is that, what was the date? The
15th?
November 15th.
Does that work for everybody?
No? Should we make a motion?
6:30.
6:30?
30.
I'd entertain a motion at this point.
I make a motion to continue the hearing until November 15th at 6:30.
And
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Everybody okay with this? Here we go, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker, Senior.
Yes.
The Haynes.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Mr. Chairman, will we still be on Zoom?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
As long as humanly possible, we're gonna be on Zoom.
As long as the governor's order is active, we're on Zoom.
Exactly.
I got it. Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to extend the time frame for the board to close the public hearing.
Oh, no, we don't need to do that. They're offered a written extension. We don't need to vote that.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
All right, we're doing the right thing. That's fine. That's fine. All right, so that takes care of that business. What else we got going on tonight, Deb?
Nothing. That was it.
All right. Anything we need to discuss? I know there was no minutes at this point. Was there anything else deliberative that we need to talk about?
Only if you want to add like a tentative date for another hearing, if we get these things continue with Shinglemill and also anything that may come up November and December.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could we change our December 20th meeting to the 13th?
Yeah.
Instead of having it 5 days before Christmas? That's going to be a busy week for everybody.
I think you should
Look at
put
the
that-
calendar.
I think you should put that on on your next meeting date as an agenda item, changing your schedule because it's not on this agenda.
Okay.
What else we got? Anything else good?
Greg, you had asked a question a little while ago about, what happens if something happens? And, and if I could take a few minutes to speak to that.
Mr. Rosa, I don't mean to interrupt Mr. Weigel, but I think we already continued the public hearing.
Yeah,
it's closed,
unfortunately, we're in a bad point. We're at a bad point at this point. We really can't discuss anything.
Okay.
We've already continued, so. But let's keep this on tap for next time.
Perhaps he could write the board a note on the point that he wished to make, so the board would have that, a note or an email.
Legal, does that work?
I'm happy to send an email to Ms. Shuttlesworth. Just
Yep.
addressing that issue.
Yep, that'd be great.
All right, what else we got? Anything else?
How about a motion to adjourn?
I would say I got a motion to adjourn. I got a second. Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Haynes.
Yes.
We're out of here.
Good
Till
night.
next time, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Bye.